back to Meat Loaf world for a little while here. I did mention an episode ago about what was happening. We'd got to the final 2 dates at the NEC in Birmingham. Meat Loaf was the first artist who sold out 4 NECs and 4 Wembleys. Prior to that had been Earth, Wind and Fire done 3. And I know that there's many artists done 12, 15 nights at the NEC and 15 nights at Wembley, and that's fantastic. But back then in 1981, 82, that was quite some achievement for somebody who hadn't been touring for a few years because he'd had a throat problem. So we're at the end of the tour, and I'd had the pleasure of being able to play on Promised Land every night and make Meat Loaf laugh, you know, enjoying the company of such great musicians, and to be on stage with a band that was really, really gracious. Everybody in the band was pretty cool about what they were doing, you know, and of course, and Leslie Adair was there as well. We did see Pearl at that point, but I'll tell you about Pearl in a little while. So towards the end of the night, of the first night or the second night, I said to me, I've spoken to Bob, and you've been telling to me that you don't want to keep singing 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You don't want to be singing Promise, you know, Paradise by a Dash of Light. I said, you're probably going to have to for the rest of your life, but I can certainly write you something that'll perhaps give you an alternative to sing sometimes. You've heard it lots of times, mate, but the audience love hearing you sing that song, and the band love playing it and stuff. So what I'll do is I'll come over to America, I'll come over to you, and we'll write some tunes. I'll write some songs, I'll bring you some songs that you might want to listen to. So later on in that year, I think it was about August, after I'd played with the 10-piece at the gallery, I got home, packed my bag, and off I went with my guitar on my shoulder, because you could carry it in those days, put it in, you know, didn't have to put it, I didn't have a case. I still haven't got a, well, I have got a case now, but there's a nice story about the gallery, about me leaving the guitar, stood by the door of the gallery, and I'd gone to, I think, Top Cappy or something, a restaurant next door, to have a Turkish kebab or something. I come back and somebody put it in a case for me. As opposed to stealing it, somebody actually put it in a case for me. So here I am travelling on the plane, I'm on the way to America, and I'd been asked to come out there by Tom Tully, who was the crew boss, the production boss, a really lovely Irish guy who lived in New York with his girlfriend, and very kindly offered to put me up while I was going to commute backwards and forwards to Meat Loaf, who lived in Stamford, Connecticut, which is quite a ways out, and I'd go there on the train, and you know, to work with writing songs for him. And Meat knew I was coming because we'd kind of communicated with it. So I spent a few days with Tom, and actually there's something I must confess here. When I left Tom's, I think I'd made a couple of phone calls home, and I might have left a bill, and I'm not being comedic, but if I ever see him again, I'd really like to give him the money for that, because he was very, very kind. So I get on the train at Grand Central, so it's all very romantic, and off I go to Stamford, Connecticut, and Meat Loaf meets me at the station with his car and takes me to his house. And there I meet Pearl, who, as you now know, she sings with Meat Loaf when he plays live. It's his daughter, and she was just a little tot at that time. And of course Leslie, his wife, lovely lady. And we spend a few days sitting there writing. You know, it was a bit uncomfortable to begin with, because people haven't worked together. You're not kind of sure how it's going to work, but I know kind of what he wants to do. I think that I can probably help, you know, that these songs will probably work for him. And one of the days that I was there was one of Meat's guitar players was there, Mark Doyle. I should tell you this. Mark was the guitar player, Steve Hunter was the other guitar player. And Mark really played, you know, looked great on stage, everything, played the guitar. Anyway, when I got to his house, he was at the piano. We're all going to write some songs. And he starts playing like, you know, Elton, like, and then starts singing. like an amazing voice. I said, how come you don't sing it in a band? He said, not good enough. And that's one of the things you have to really know, is the fact that you can be a great guitar player, but if you don't come up to it, you don't get the job. You know what I mean? And the thing is that Mark was not doing himself any justice. Said, a great singer and an amazing piano player who also played the guitar so well. So he was singing, and I'm showing him Thinking of You, you know. But I had this song coming very, very slowly, and I thought, if I'm going to present this, it's going to be hard for me to present the song unless I record it. So I said, look mate, I want to record this song for you. While I've been in New York at Tom Tully's, I did a couple of gigs for John Waite. And as you know, John Waite was originally in the Babies from up Lancaster way, but then eventually, of course, on his own right, had an enormous hit with Missing You. And he had a really, really great band. Frankie LaRocca on drums, a guy called Cufflinks on guitar, and a guy called Ivan Krall, who you probably know. And Ivan had played with Patti Smith, and also I think he'd done some work with Iggy Pop, and so he was one of the Stooges and you know, one of the great New York guitar players. And he had a small studio. And I said, I want to really record this song for Meat Loaf. I can't present it to him unless I said, and I said, I've got this great drum. And I spoke to Meat Loaf about it. And if you perhaps get a chance to speak to him, there was a day when we went into United Artists and Muff Winwood was sat across from him and me. And Meat said, I want to do George's songs because he writes the greatest ballad. And I wanted to use his drummer, David Alexander, who I think is the greatest ballad drummer that he'd ever heard. And there was, you know, you've got people like Max Weinberg and you know, Liberty DeVito, all these great drummers and stuff, of which there's a plethora of them in America. But we flew David over, and he came to stay at Far Rockaway, which is where Tom Tully lived in Far Rockaway. You have to get the train in and out, you know, it's underground, but then it goes overground, goes past Kennedy. And I used to travel in and out before David came. I used to wear the, you know, I've mentioned about last time I told you about the 1938 Sid Cup. So I've got my 1938 Sid Cup on. I'm getting the AA train, which is going to Far Rockaway. And of course, as it's going along, eventually it gets to Bedford Stuyvesant. And Bedford Stuyvesant's a bit tougher than Manhattan. You know, it's just a little bit harder, right? And of course I'm stood there, flying suit, guitar over my shoulder, and some tough guys start getting on, the train kind of empties a bit, and they look round and they see this guy in a flying, and they immediately go to another carriage, because tough as they were, there's a proper nutcase up the train there with a flying suit on in the middle of summer. David came over, and we went over to Ivan Krall's, and very kindly Steve Buslow, who was Meat's bass player, lovely guy. I've really tried to find out where he is, to try to catch up with him, but he doesn't seem to exist on media. I'm just hoping that he's still a beautiful fella. We go to the studio and we record a version of I Can't Stand It Anymore and Thinking of You. And I think that really we did capture something there. We captured something about the spirit of where Meat Loaf was, what he wanted to do. I had the original idea because a friend of mine who had been working with a band, and we parted company, you know, not acrimoniously, but we, you know, and difference of opinion musically. It happens. People get tired in rehearsal rooms at 11 o'clock at night and say things they don't mean, which you can't unsay. So it's important. So before it happens to that, tell the rest of your bandmates that you've got a headache, you've got to go home, so it doesn't dissolve into somebody saying something that they can't unsay later, you know. And I drove past him, stood at the bus stop looking really tired and careworn. He'd obviously been working somewhere really hard. Maybe he was working at his mum's or something, but he was covered in stuff. And it prompted the line, you know, that I could see. Now I see you stand in the dirt in your hair. In your hair. Could be me that's laughing, but don't you know? Don't you know I care? Don't look away to some. Meat Loaf had mentioned to me that, you know, he'd been friends with John Belushi because, of course, he'd been an actor, you know, and that obviously it was a tragic loss. You know, as we all know, he was an amazing actor and a character. And he was very large, very much larger than life. And Meat, you know, told me some things about their experiences together and how he'd been touched by the fact that he'd lost his wife, John. So when I wrote I Can't Stand It Anymore, I tried to put that into the lyrics. So there was a story there that Meat could relate to. And of course he could. And so the idea of you came in the winter and I let you in, you carried your love like a broken wing, was the situation that maybe was going down. So, and because Meat Loaf could see that imagery, because a lot of his performance was about imagery. And most singers really want to know what they're singing about. Does it make sense? Does it touch proper heartache? Does it touch loss? Does it make you laugh? Is there some truth in there? And of course, when you're writing for somebody, it's a target. You can actually aim for where you want to go. When you're just writing, things come, but you can actually aim. But it's not like a Moon and June thing, right? What it is, look at the person, look what he's asked you to write about, and hopefully you'll be able to do what I did. And I'm sure you will, because there's millions of people out there writing songs every day, great songs that don't always get heard. After I'd taken these songs to Meat, recording ones, I said, look, I think this is really down your way, I can do it. He said, what's that line there? Because it's really important. When people sing, singers really want to know that they're talking sense, not nonsense. And in that song, there's a song, Your Castle's Lonely Keep. And he couldn't quite hear keep. He thought, Castle's Lonely Key. And I said, no, Your Castle's Lonely Keep, the heart of the castle. We went to the power station. I think Meat was doing some vocals on something, and I managed to have a small chat with Tom Dowd, who was working on the album that he was doing at the time, which is called Midnight of the Lost and Found. And he said, Tom said, George, Meat loves your songs. Meat loves your songs. But Meat's under pressure with funds, and he's had to do a co-write with all the players. So if you look at that album, you will see that Paul Jacobs mentioned, you'll see that all the musicians who'd played on the tour earlier that year that I'd worked on were perhaps getting some of the loot that was owed to them. I don't know all the details of it, but what Tom was saying was perhaps, and I didn't realise at the time, was maybe saying, well, if you do a co-write with me, then we can get it on the album. But he was genuinely saying that they were great songs. And that's enough, really. The fact that Meat wanted to do the songs, Tom Dowd thought they were good enough, and I was lucky enough to bring my friend David Alexander, who drummed with me for a long time, and we got to play in New York with Ivan Kroll, Steve Buslow. What more can I ask? It's a great song, and Karen, my beautiful wife, really loves it. It's her favourite, and I hope you enjoy it too. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Look after yourselves. I'll see you all, hopefully, next time. You came in the winter